And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we are going to be looking at the NFL MVP ladder, and we're going to be talking about my opinions on where all of these players should be placed in the MVP ladder. So we're going to start at number 8. And we're not going to do top 10 because I feel like, the ones at the bottom 10, there's usually like 9 and 10, the players on that ladder. There's usually like barely any chance that any of these guys are going to end up making it through in these MVP conversations. So we're going to start at 8. Now, I will say this, my opinions on what the NFL MVP means. So my opinion is it's not really that different from most people, but I'm not sure if people really share my opinion. But essentially, the MVP for the NFL is usually rewarded to the best quarterback on the best team, right? And it's only reserved for quarterbacks. I refuse to believe that an NFL running back is more valuable than an NFL quarterback. There is it's a very rare chance that ever happens. When Jonathan Taylor was in the running for MVP, I knew he wasn't going to win it because you simply cannot compare a good running back to a good NFL quarterback. There's just the value that a quarterback brings to an NFL team is incredible. And it's like we've seen it a lot throughout the season, and we've seen it a lot throughout the rest of the seasons, especially now where the quarterback position is so much more valuable. So there's not going to be a single running back on this list for all of you running back lovers, so tough. So first player on this list at number 8 is Joe Burrow, and he's mainly in here because of the stats that he's able to produce. Now, in terms of team record, the Bengals, they're 4-6, which again is not really all that impressive and is the reason why Joe Burrow is ranked all the way so low. However, if we're looking at an individual standpoint with Joe Burrow having 2,672 passing yards, 24 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions, it's really like no surprise that Joe Burrow is going to be in this conversation. Now, the Bengals, they did start 0-3, but however, I will say that right now the Bengals, they seem to be rallying back, especially in this really, really tough AFC North division. And he was the number 1 overall pick, as we all know. But ever since they went 0-3, now their record is 4-6. Again, not really that good, and that's a big reason why he's ranked so low, despite his impressive numbers. And I mean, the team looks a lot stronger. You can thank Jamar Chase for having such a ridiculous performance last game against the Ravens. They did lose to the Ravens because they decided to go for 2 and go for the win instead of tying the game and trying to go into overtime. In hindsight, you can make the argument that they should have just tied it. But again, if they would have converted, then we wouldn't even be having this conversation in the slightest. Now, next player on this list at number 7 is Jared Goff. Now, on Sunday night, he did end up turning into Jared Goof, throwing 5 interceptions, which is not all that impressive. But before that, he was really, really good at protecting the football. His stats this season, 16 touchdowns, 2,080 yards, along with 9 interceptions. Again, 5 of those interceptions came in just one game. So really, it's like 16 passing touchdowns and like around 4 interceptions. But again, that one game really, really messed him up right there. But big reason why Jared Goff is in these standings and in these MVP rankings right now is because of the team record. I mean, right now, the Lions, they're number 1 in the entire NFC, and the only team that's really close to them in the NFC is the Eagles with a 7-2 record. But again, being 8-1 and being the best team in the entire NFC is a great argument for any quarterback to be in the MVP conversation. So I don't really have any problems with putting Jared Goff in number 7 because, again, team record is very, very important and what determines value. Now, you can make an argument that it's not just him that's the reason for this team record, but again, it's not like he's playing bad in these games. Now, everyone else on the team is also playing pretty well, but he's also one of those players on that team that is playing well. Again, the big reason why he's not much higher on this list is because of how bad he was in the most recent game, throwing 5 interceptions, which was ridiculous. But that's all that really needs to be said. Next is Jaden Daniels. Now, I mean, Jaden Daniels, if he's not a lock for Offensive Rookie of the Year, then I don't know who else is going to win that award, because Jaden Daniels has just been ridiculous this season. His passing touchdowns aren't really all that impressive, with only 9 of them. However, he did only throw 2 interceptions throughout the entirety of the season, and he also has accounted for 2,147 passing yards in this season as well, not to mention being second in the NFC East, just behind the Philadelphia Eagles. And, they're 7-3 right now. Again, it's not a bad record, and not to mention the fact that Jaden Daniels has been a monster in these last few games. He's thrown just 2 interceptions all season, which is very, very impressive. He also has a total, there was 9, I mentioned the 9 passing touchdowns, but I didn't mention the rest of the rushing touchdowns. So in total, that's 13 touchdowns this season, and he's also completing 68% of his passes. That's a 68 completion rate, which is very, very good. He did miss a game due to injury, but he's still a viable MVP candidate going into this season, in my opinion. Next player on this list, probably someone that you don't really expect, Kyler Murray. Now, I'm a really, really big fan of Kyler Murray. I don't know what it is about him, but there's something about this guy that I just like. The way that he plays is it's so funny. It's so fun to watch the way that he plays, being able to scramble the way that he does. And he recently last season, he was rehabbing from a torn ACL, and he's come back like nothing happened. He is an MVP candidate right now. He recently beat the Jets the game was never close against the Jets, honestly. And I'll talk about the Jets a little bit later on. And he also had a 91% completion rate against the Jets with 266 yards and 1 passing touchdown. Throughout the season, he has 2,000 passing yards and 12 passing touchdowns, along with only 3 interceptions. I think Murray deserves a lot more credit for the way that he's been playing, more so than most of the other quarterbacks. And again, like in total, he has 16 touchdowns. So, 12 passing touchdowns with the rest of them being on the ground. And just throwing only 3 interceptions, that is very, very efficient. And he's also leading the Cardinals to the top of the NFC West, which is something that I didn't really expect him to do, considering how, the Niners are the Niners. I mean, like the Niners, they aren't really they don't seem like that scary team that we've seen in the past few years. You can make the argument that it's because there were a lot of injuries on this team, and some players aren't really playing as well as you'd expect them to. Brandon Ayuk. And Christian McCaffrey, he did make his return. So again, we will see just how the standings look like towards the end of the season. But right now, I don't have a problem with putting Kyler Murray at number 5. Now, the next player on this list, again, another player that you might not expect to be so high, Jalen Hurts. Now, as much as I do not like the Eagles, and as much as I cannot stand losing to them every single season being a Giants fan, I cannot deny just how much more of an improvement Jalen Hurts has been showcasing recently. I mean, in the beginning of the season, the team was very, very shaky. They were very turnover prone, and a big reason for that was because of Jalen Hurts. But now, out of nowhere, it seems like, the 76ers, the Eagles are a competent team once again. Aside from the Detroit Lions, they are the top team in the entirety of the NFC. They own their division right now. They own the home field advantage, and they do own the best record in the entire NFC East right now. And it doesn't really seem like they're going to slow down based off of how they played. They just beat Dallas in Dallas's home stadium as well. Dallas has yet to win a home game, by the way. More on them a little bit later on. But again, 70% completion in that game with 2 touchdowns, 2 passing touchdowns, 202 yards. Not to mention for the season, he has 1,976 passing yards, which is not all that good, but he makes up for it. He definitely makes up for it for the amount of yards he can gain on the ground. And with 12 passing touchdowns and 5 interceptions, I don't really think there's any other quarterback that, has a really solid combination of both a good ground game and a good passing game, aside from one more quarterback who is going to be a little bit higher up on this list, and I'm sure you guys already know who that is. But again, this is not bad. I really don't think that Jalen Hurts is a bad quarterback, despite what a lot of people may say. And next player on this list is, of course, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he's really on this list primarily because of the team record. Right now, the Chiefs have yet to lose a single game in the entirety of the regular season. And despite this, I will say that it's not necessarily all because of Patrick Mahomes, because Mahomes has not been playing that solid. In fact, of all the quarterbacks that I've mentioned, he is by far the least efficient. 12 passing touchdowns with 9 interceptions. That's a lot of interceptions for Patrick Mahomes, especially this early in this season. He does have 2,200 passing yards, so that is something. And he's still an otherworldly talent. However, I will say that a big reason why this team has the record that they have is not because of Patrick Mahomes. And I mean, this is arguably the worst season of his career. Yet the Chiefs are flawless. They're 9-0, I believe, with the rest of the season. And I mean, there's really nothing that can be there's really no point that I can make for Patrick Mahomes not being in the MVP conversation, because he has essentially everything, especially the team record, which is the most important thing when you're looking at most valuable player or most valuable quarterback. And I mean, the season is still young, so we'll see how he performs. But again, he's going to be in the top 3 primarily because of team record. Now, next player on this list is Josh Allen. Again, this was the quarterback that I was talking about before that had a good combination of both passing game and a run game. Despite how well Josh Allen has been playing, he's definitely toned it down with the interceptions. He's not as interception prone as he was several other seasons ago. I say this despite the fact that he threw 2 interceptions last game against the Colts. But still, overall, throughout the season, he has 2,281 passing yards, 17 passing touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. The 4 interception part is very, very impressive. And he also has 21 total touchdowns, I should mention, this season. And the Bills, they remain at the top of their conference. So really, he has the stats, he has the team record, he has the efficiency, he has the ground game and the passing game. There's really nothing else that there's really nothing else that you would want in a quarterback aside from Josh Allen. That is, unless maybe you're Lamar Jackson. I mean, Lamar Jackson is at number 1. I think he's going to be the MVP in this season once again. And a big reason why he's ranked over Josh Allen, in my opinion, is because his stats are just so much better and so much more efficient than everybody else on this list. I mean, 2,669 passing yards, 24 passing touchdowns with only 2 interceptions. And he also suffered from similar problems with Josh Allen, where a lot of people thought he was a little bit turnover prone, right? And he's cleaned that up dramatically. And last season, I believe he did end up being in MVP conversations with far lesser stats than what he has right now. And I mean, he's just a completely different animal in this season. I mean, the efficiency, the ground game as well. You can make an argument that, it's because he has a really solid team now, but this is what a valuable quarterback looks like. And I think he's going to win the MVP when it's all said and done. And he's probably going to go back to back because, he won it last year. And he has a total of 26 touchdowns. So while the ground game and the rushing touchdowns, while they aren't necessarily there, similar to how Jalen Hurts' rushing touchdowns are there most of the time, he's still putting the ball in the end zone. And I mean, 24-2, that touchdown to interception ratio is incredible. And he has yet to throw 2 interceptions in a game. I could go on and on for why he should be the NFL MVP. And I'm sure a lot of you believe that he should be the MVP as well. In fact, the last thing that I will say, he already has as many passing touchdowns this season right now after week 10 as he did last season when he won the MVP. And he threw 5 less interceptions. He's throwing 5 less interceptions now than last season when he won the MVP. So that's really that's a very, very difficult argument to see that he's playing significantly better now, and he won the MVP last season. Like, this should be a clear-cut MVP favorite, and he should win the MVP. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins it unanimously, honestly. Wouldn't be the first time that he's done that. So that's all that I have to say in regards to the MVP ladder, and those are my opinions. And I mean, you can let me know whether or not you can let me know whether or not you guys agree with them, whether you guys don't agree with them, whether I have no idea, I don't know football or something like that. Again, this is only the second time that I've been talking about football in an entire podcast segment, so just let me know what you guys thought of that list. But that's all that I really have to say in regards of the NFL MVP and the MVP ladder. And again, Lamar Jackson, he should be a clear-cut favorite to win the MVP. But that's all that I got to say. So now we're going to go ahead and go into the fourth segment where I do a little bit of a recap of the Dolphins and the Rams game. So I'm going to be right back after this short break, so be sure to stay tuned.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.